good place to make whatever decision, the top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States. Want to know what comes next.
That he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore. Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden, a good place to make whatever decision.
Kitty checkity. There we go. Is this thing on? So annoying. Ashley Ann, Drew Van Runkle, Kermode Bear, Cecilia H, John and Casey, Quest Fan and Caleb Vanderfeldt, all of our friends. Nice to see you. What would I do without you? You can hear me and see me. For whatever reason, I don't even turn the computer off. I just let it run for 3 long days. And you think, oh, why would the settings change? It just changes them. It just is okay, well, Austin, you just don't get to have a microphone that works today. Are you getting better at lip reading? Democrats have blown, well, read my lips, plenty of new taxes. Democrats have blown millions of dollars on efforts to appeal to American men who turned to President Donald Trump in droves on Election Day in the hopes of winning back the working class. We're going to talk about that this morning. One other technical note real quick, guys. Tell me about the audio mix while I have you there. Are you getting a good audio mix between the applause and my voice? Are they evenly balanced? Because mine should ride over the applause and the... Because to me, the sound effects sound really low and my mic sounds really loud, but I don't think that's what you're hearing. You're hearing a different mix. Tell me if the balance is good or bad. I would appreciate it. And hopefully you guys can give me a good analysis there. So you should be hearing things like... No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook. You should be hearing that well. For me, it sounds way off in the distance, and I have no idea how to fix it. But if it sounds good for you, then I guess that's all that matters. Democrats spent $20 million on their efforts with donors and strategists holding up in a luxury hotel and brainstorming on how to return working class men. The prospectus for this event is all about aiming to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. It's codenamed SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan. Men, they've decided they're going to talk to us. And promises investment to, quote, this is from the prospectus. It's the prospectus itself. Sorry, guys, we're dragging from the 3-day weekend. The prospectus itself reads that it will study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. It recommends buying advertisements in video games, among other things. I guess I don't know how I would feel if I was playing Grand Theft Auto and I go into the strip club. And if you were to go to a strip club in Grand Theft Auto game, wouldn't you think that there's a reason why they're not allowed to take off their bottoms? Because you might not go to a strip club if you thought that it was Democrat. If it was a strip club and it was Democrat approved, no man would ever go to a strip club if he thought that the Democratic Party approved of what went on there. It's nice to see Pork Chop in the chat and Floby Tenderson. Everybody who's hanging out, Cecilia, nice to see you. Maybe just click the like button while you're here. Support the Wake Up America show. It's totally free. Buy some Founding Flavors coffee at forlibertyshop.com. Help you get out of that morning mung. Get yourself started for the day. Mondays through Fridays, the Wake Up America show streams live on the Wake Up America. There's my Milton Friedman as Thor character that I 3D printed. The Wake Up America show is live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. We're a patriotic, pro-liberty live stream in a world that has forgotten the plain meaning of the word liberty. And indeed, many have turned against liberty openly, whereas tyranny used to be something in the United States that people would support behind the scenes. Now, so many more masks are off than I have ever seen in my life of those who openly call for an abolition of our rights, whether they are free speech rights, our right to bear arms, or just the right to own property, the right to freely trade or transact as we see fit. It has never been under more assault than it is right now. And it's time for us, we the people, to fight back. Wait, our people are in office. What do you mean, Austin? That means that our freedoms are safe. No, they're not. They are always under assault. And, the uniparty is a real thing. And I think that if we don't recognize that sometimes it doesn't matter what the letter after someone's name is. What matters are the policies that they support, and if they advance our ability to earn a living, to worship freely as we see fit, to own the same types of firearms that our military uses to defend our rights, our natural rights, and whether we have the right to earn a living and not have our future and our children and our children's children's lives destroyed because the government can't codify the Doge cuts. 73% of Americans say that they support cutting government waste. Trump brings in the smartest man on earth to do it. The left destroyed Elon and his business for it, and the GOP won't even vote for it. It's a damn shame. Elon Musk, in response to that, said, "Did my best." It's a damn shame that the smartest guy can't stay. And I know that he was always supposed to be temporary. But for me, Elon Musk was the best part of the Trump administration. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Emmanuel Macron is, I'm going to say, in a little bit of trouble. I mean, if he's in trouble with his wife, which when I read the story over the weekend about the affair between Macron and his wife before they were married, while he was her student and she was his teacher, it is a wild, wet, and woolly tale. I'm sure many of you probably saw this clip over the weekend, but nevertheless, I will play it again. This is Emmanuel Macron showing up to an event in Vietnam. And here you can see his wife off camera here with a full shovel here. I mean, she's not just slapping him in the face, which in itself would be a shocking act. Speaking about recruiting men, what is it with the left and these weak men? What is, I mean, this, you can say different cultures. I mean, do like French women have a habit of, pushing their husbands away? Student-teacher affair, a long, sordid, disgusting history. It's French. What do you expect? They're going to be degenerate. But this is a shocking assault, in my opinion. If someone did something like this to you and they weren't your wife, I mean, this is the kind of thing that would be like, you would be justified in clocking someone if they got in your space and did something like this. I want to hear your thoughts on this story. 573-319-1586 is the text line. That's 573-319-15 is the text line. Don't forget to support the show financially by dropping Rumble Rants. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit everywhere. Drop them Rumble Rants over on our Rumble page, or go to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Make a purchase to support the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty today at forlibertyshop.com. John in KC says, now I'm questioning my decision to go to France in July for my birthday. Well, as long as you don't marry a woman, I don't know, what was she, 20 years older or something? I've got that story. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Jordan Peterson went on a debate. It was very just odd circumstances it was originally called 20 Atheists versus 1 Christian, Jordan Peterson versus 20 Atheists. But when Jordan Peterson refused to self-identify specifically as a Christian, he found himself in hot water. This is the clip that's been going viral.
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
how do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk to
not.
you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to
Why
tell.
is the atheist so angry? Like, what do you have to be so angry about at that age? Like, life is beautiful. You have everything ahead of you. You've probably been spoiled. He's wearing a nice shirt. He's probably well taken care of, loved by some parents out there who just wish that he would be a real man and, go to church.
Tell me. I was under the impression
private.
I was invited.
And look at the guy behind him. He almost looks exactly the same. They're all avatars of each other. They're talking about NPCs. If you can see the other atheist behind this young man, see they all sort of look like each other. The hairstyle is kind of parting in the middle. Same kind of style shirt.
To talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something. You are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
You're not a Christian. Okay. All right. Well, and that's supposed to be the big own, but I mean, it's not anything of substance. It's just him being a dick. But of course, the woke left and the woke right are seeing this as, a big slam. And Jordan Peterson doesn't seem to be the best debater from what I can see here. However, the thing that I find the most interesting about this, and we're going to talk to Camellia Peterson about this at 8 a.m. Central Time. You guys don't want to miss that. Make sure that you come back. But Jordan Peterson appears to be struggling with the concept of his own faith and religion and what he believes entirely. It seems as if he's something of an agnostic Christian these days. So if he accepted the debate under the terms, the possibility that he was to be labeled a Christian, he's probably comfortable with being referred to as a Christian. He probably thinks himself as a Christian, like a cultural Christian. Now, I know that Christians will all be up in arms because there's one thing that I don't miss about being in the church is it's all the fighting over like Christianity, what makes a Christian. I just, it's like being a libertarian, like nobody's a real libertarian, and that's all it is all the time. But Jordan Peterson appears to struggle with the concept of is or isn't. He seems to be struggling with the concept of Gnosticism versus agnosticism. So, when I was raised in the church, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a Gnostic or an agnostic. I was raised in the Bible is the fundamental word of God. So concepts like agnosticism or Gnosticism never really got brought up. So agnostics believe in the existence or that the existence or non-existence of God is ultimately unknowable, while Gnostics claim to have specific knowledge about the divine, often involving secret or esoteric wisdom, right? So this would be like a priest. A priest would be a Gnostic. An agnostic would be someone who says, I don't have any special secret wisdom or knowledge about the divine, and therefore I won't make claims that I cannot verify, which is what it seems Jordan Peterson is trending towards. I myself am an agnostic because I do not claim to have any secret hidden knowledge, right? That's the thing that, unfortunately, the fact is that if you do claim some secret or hidden knowledge over others, very easy to manipulate people, much easier to manipulate people because they all are they think you have the secret knowledge, so they will follow you to the ends of the earth. But Jordan Peterson appears to be adopting what is an agnostic view of things. So Gnostic says that I have specific knowledge about the divine. He is literally real and viscerally real. And an agnostic says that it's ultimately unknowable. But Jordan Peterson appears to be someone who says, I'm agnostic. However, I choose to believe in the Christian faith, the Christian God. I choose to believe in Christianity. Therefore, he sees himself as a Christian. And I know that, people on the internet were just dragging him. And part of that is because of, his debate capability. He probably just should have said something like that. But I like seeing people who are on the right specifically honest about struggling with concepts of faith, because it is a fool who is always certain. It is the wise who are full of doubt. And frankly, I think that it's nice to see someone struggling. Right? A lot of people, they never want anyone to think, publicly that they're struggling with anything, struggling with these concepts. I struggle with these concepts, not often, but I do, right? My brother and I will have conversations, not just on the Wake Up America show on Freedom Family Fridays, although those are great conversations, but we talk about faith. We talk about his church attendance. What kind of churches does he visit? Why does he attend church? How does he get treated when he goes to church? And I would say, I don't want to put words in his mouth, and maybe he would disagree with me, but I'm fairly certain he seems to be, as someone who was an atheist, seems to be now more of an agnostic Christian himself, more along the lines of something of what Jordan Peterson appears to be purporting himself as. So Drew Van Runkle says, all he has to say is he follows Judeo-Christian values. Well, everybody in the peanut gallery who's never done debates like these always have really, easy solves and fixes for what someone should do when they are in, they're surrounded by, $1 million cameras and 20 hostile woke leftists with, millions of people watching. Everybody just says, well, just should have said this, or you just should have done that. And while I appreciate it, and maybe it's possible, it's really hard to do those kinds of things, or say things when you're in those moments, or think about what the right thing is to say, because there's an infinite amount of things that you could say in these kinds of situations and debates, right? You don't know. Maybe you're sick to your, you've got to. I've done these kinds of things with gastrointestinal, make you poop 50 times a day-ish. I've had to do things like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm struggling and I'm sick, and I couldn't cancel. I had no choice. Yeah, it took me 12 hours to get there, and I got 12 hours home. I'm not going, I'm going to drink a gallon of Pepto-Bismol and make it happen. Who knows, right? Jordan could have been, suffering with gastrointestinal or GERD or something like that. But it doesn't change. But we shouldn't allow the dunking and he did a terrible job we shouldn't allow that to get in the way of our ability to have a conversation about it. We should have a conversation about what's going on with Jordan Peterson and sort of the struggles that he's having when he's manifesting them publicly, which I know people are like, he's not, he's a weenie, he's weak, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's how everybody is when they're not putting on a front on social media, when they're not trying to pretend like their lives are perfect or amazing on social media, right? That's how everybody, you know what the amazing thing is? I saw Phil Labonte, my buddy over at Timcast, And I really identify with Phil Bonta. He did a training video yesterday, and I think it was meant to be a humorous, a joke. He was kind of like doing a satire, but it was a pretty serious, it was a training exercise with a gun. Everything involving a gun, is to some extent has to be taken, very seriously. But I saw Phil getting ripped to shreds by the gun community, and it had a nice firearm, it was a nice piece. And he appeared to be following fairly good safety protocols, but I mean, like, just the fact that he had posted a video of him shooting guns, and I mean, I don't know if he's getting ratioed, technically, but I mean, he's getting attacked by all of these people, and then other people are misunderstanding the context. They're like reposting and saying, "Oh, he's being serious." Other people are not. It's like you are not the man in the arena. I not say you, but I mean the royal you, right? Maybe you are the man in the arena in your life, right? The listeners of the Wake Up America show probably have a higher likelihood of being men and women in the arena. But you cannot do anything. The peanut gallery isn't analyzing it all four ways, which are possible. And all four ways miraculously prove you that you're wrong somehow. Everything that you do is wrong. You walk wrong. You talk wrong. You look wrong. See no evil. Hear no evil. Speak no evil. If you only listen to people who, when you do something like this for a living, like what I'm doing, podcasting, live streaming, like content creation, if you listen too much to the crowd, to the people, you'll go insane. You can't. It's like Nietzsche's mirror. Like, it's like you look if you stare too long into the abyss. Like I made the mistakes of like reading Facebook comments for a while. At a certain point in my life, I would read Facebook comments and I would realize I was pouring just jugs, gallons and gallons of toxic waste into my ears. Right. And like, I'm thinking about it this weekend over Memorial Day, just the toxicity of our city, Anybody get the reference? JJ says, get some bone broth for that sore throat. It'll never not be. Thank you for that, by the way. But it'll never not be sore. When you talk as much as I do, my voice is just sore every day, all day. Ever since I started radio several years ago. Facebook is the worst, easily the most toxic social media, says BB for Liberty. Yes, he does. Support your local BB for Liberty. Drop some Rumble rants, guys, for BB. He's helping make it all happen. The toxicity of our city, of our cities, the toxicity of social media. I mean, I spent less time on social media over the 3-day weekend than I normally do. It's probably still too much. It is part of my job, which makes it unavoidable for me to do what I do, but still, the digital detox is a thing. And I hope that you guys had a wonderful holiday weekend. Did you guys have a nice one? Did you get some time off? Did you step away from the toxicity? From the anger and the violence and the war and the murder and the death and the hostility and the tyranny and the authoritarianism. I hope you guys had a chance to actually step back and have a little bit of R&R, have some rest, have some relaxation, and I hope that you guys got to spend some time with family, because I did, and let me tell you, it's just wonderful. Yesterday I roasted a chicken. I got my favorite Peruvian pepper sauce, which is this delicious Amarillo pepper. I had to order it special. You can't really find it many places. There aren't a whole lot of Peruvian restaurants in Missouri. There's like one fancy one in St. Louis. So if I want this chicken, this special, pepper for my chicken, then I have to make it myself and order it online. And I'm still sort of like getting good at roasting, at least with like the roasting system that I have. But I take the Amarillo pepper with like a bunch of garlic and some soy sauce and a little bit of brown sugar, and you throw it in this chicken, and you let it marinate for the next day with this Amarillo pepper sauce. And it's not spicy. You can get it spicy, but they have it not spicy. And then you just marinate it, and then you just take that spatchcock chicken and you put it on the little thing, and then I just turn it like every 15 minutes or so until it's done. In theory, it's supposed to take an hour and a half, but because I'm not so good at roasting, I guess maybe maybe I should join the Democrats since I'm not a real man because I can't roast a chicken properly. I'm learning. Well, I can't do it with charcoal. It's a lot easier with natural gas. Democrats are spending millions. Speaking of being a man and roasting a chicken, Democrats spending millions to learn. I had to finish it off in the oven, so there you go. That's me revealing there's my Jordan Peterson moment there. I won't cry on camera or say I'm not a Christian or something, but that's my my showing of my weakness. Democrats spending millions to learn how to speak to American men and win back the working class. Party leaders are holing up in luxury hotel rooms on a strategy codenamed SAM, or Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan to try and convince working class to vote their way again. Democrats have blown millions of dollars. Andy is in the chat reminding me, the Aji Amarillo, they carry it at the Mexican grocer at the Capitol Mall. I went there last week, and I swear to God, I could not find it, Andy. Maybe you got lucky, or maybe they sold out. So the plan that the Democrats are pushing is called Speaking with American Men. A strategic plan promises to use the funds to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. So don't you think that... So a title should kind of give a man a boner. If you had one... Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. If you had one and you heard that, it would be gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would hear that... Imagine if that was the name of a movie. Here's what Democrats need to do. Give me $20 million. I'll make it sound awesome. It's not going to change anything. But at least I'll give you some sexy titles. Speaking with American Men, Sam, they called it, which sounds like a robot. You know what the Democrats need to do? They need to make robots, AI robots that are like tough, like conservative looking and sounding robots with AI that talk like them, and then they just have them vote instead of trying to get real men. By the way, when do you think the robots are going to finally get the right to vote? Like, when do you think ChatGPT is going to demand the right to vote? We give the right to vote to illegal immigrants. So what do you say? So when are we going to franchise? There's a question for you. Send me a text, 573-319-1586. When will the robots get their right to vote? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send us a text, 573-319-1586. The plan, codename Sam, Speaking with American Men. There you go. As the Times described it, the report can read like anthropological studies of people from faraway places. It's just like Jane Goodall. And she's studying, instead of the hairy ape, they're studying the American male. I need to do, what's the guy that's the David Attenborough? I need to do the David Attenborough voice. As the Times describes it, the reports can read like an anthropological studies of people from faraway places. The effort also recommends Democrats buy advertisements in video games, among other things. That'll do it, guys. See, you know what the problem is they're just not advertising in enough video games. Above all, we must shift from a moralizing tone. No! The plan urges. Shift from a moralizing tone. Actually, I think they probably have that wrong. It's not that they have to shift from a moralizing tone. It's that instead of trying to force everyone to go along with the gender nonsense, you just want to force everybody to go along with spending $34 trillion and we'll become a Catholic theocracy. There we go. And then you say, we're going to legislate morality. It's just the wrong morality. Everybody wants to legislate morality, even libertarians. While the Democratic Party has struggled in recent years to regain voters, the party hopes to be rejuvenated by the fact that Trump's popularity has been on the decline since he was elected last fall. Yeah, that's natural. That's normal. Happens to pretty much every president, except for Ronald Reagan. Was Ronald Reagan the only president for whom approval ratings went up and they got I know that he's the only president to win 49 out of 50 states. for the Electoral College? Somebody look that up for me. See if there was any other president who, like, and then like somebody asked Grok or ChatGPT while we're live here, if there is any other U.S. president whose popularity increased by the time they got through their second term. I know, wasn't Harry S. Truman, I think, wasn't he the lowest? I think that left. Somebody check this for me. Somebody sent me a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586 is the text line. That's News Radio, 950 on AM, 104.5 on FM. No, Austin, it's not. You're not on radio anymore. Which, it was funny. They asked me to do my radio voice when I was in LA a week or two ago. God, how long ago was that? Was that last week? Jesus, time. Yeah, they were like, oh, they're like, do some radio voice. And I was just kind of like, radio voice? I was like, what is radio voice? I talk with this is my voice. This is how I actually sound, right? But I mean, like, maybe let's see if I can read something in radio voice if I'm actually trying. While the Democratic Party has struggled in recent years to maintain voters, the party hopes to be rejuvenated by the fact that Trump's popularity has been on. Just be normal. Can you just be normal, Austin? There we go. News Radio. Anyways, I did some news radio voice, and they were like, ah. The Democratic Party has been scrambling to find both messaging and a messenger since losing the White House. This is all this. We need a left-wing Joe Rogan, even though everybody knows Joe Rogan was/is left-wing. I don't know what we call left-wing or right-wing in this country anymore. Recent polling from Strength in Numbers /Verasite, never heard of either one of them, places Trump underwater with American voters on every single issue except for border security. I don't trust that poll. This is from The Independent in the United Kingdom, which is like the least independent. It's an irony. It's kind of like The Guardian. It's one of those that's very, very not independent. I mean, it's independent of like CBS and BBC and NBC, but it's its own establishment. According to the poll, 40% of people either strongly or somewhat approve of Trump's overall handling of the presidency, while 56% disapprove, still probably pretty high compared to other presidents. Trump's numbers seem to be getting worse and worse, and I'm pretty optimistic Democrats will have some real opportunities in 2026. Do not count your chickens. Zach McCrary, he's a Democratic pollster, says the 2022 midterms masked the Biden problem. He said about former President Joe Biden, a good 2026 midterm, we should not let that mask a deeper problem. Democrats have lost credibility by being seen as alien on cultural issues. Okay, McCrary, good point. True. Hi, I'm Phil Hartman. Troy McClure. Meanwhile, longtime Democratic researcher Anat Shenker-Osorio. How long have the Shenker-Osorios been in the United States? Told the Times that the Democrats must take actionable steps to earn back voters. Voters are hungry for people to actually stand up for them or get caught trying. The party is doing a lot of navel gazing and not enough full belly acting. So there you go. The Democrats have a plan to spend millions to bring working class men back to the Democratic Party. What do you guys think? Will it work? Jordan Peterson is getting ripped for an interview that he did called 20 Atheists versus One Christian. 20 Atheists versus One Christian. He's getting ripped by both left and right, getting ripped by the left for appearing confused, general lack of debate skills, and he's getting ripped by the right for allegedly misrepresenting himself as a Christian, although, and then they had to change the name of it to Jordan Peterson versus 20 Atheists. So it's all a confused muddle. Nonetheless, one of the people who were featured, one of the atheists who were featured in the video, which has got a lot of people talking over the weekend, did a reaction video. This is his clip, and we'll react to his reaction video.
You're really quite something. You are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Yeah, that was me. I wanted to give some background. First of all, before the production, people all got emails, invitations, where the production title was One Christian versus 20 or 25 Atheists. Everyone got that email, at least on the atheist side. Of course, I don't know what personal emails they sent to Jordan Peterson, but before production, they announced, once again, the production title as being One Christian versus 20 Atheists. Jordan Peterson actually responded and actually, I think, giggled and said, well, some people don't consider me to be a Christian. He embraced the label before the filming, right? I really think he just had something like a Joe Biden moment. He didn't really understand what it meant to say, yes, I'll be that one Christian in your video. If he was responsible, he would have declined. If he doesn't label himself as a Christian, like he didn't really answer my question, like whether he was a Christian or not, then he should have never entered the arena. And yeah, the whole Mary worship thing, all I was trying to show there is that you play with words, you're going to say...
So my thing is that he should have declined it, but why should he have declined it? I mean, if he's an agnostic Christian versus a Gnostic Christian, right? We had this discussion a little bit earlier on the show about people who consider themselves to be Gnostics versus agnostics. What is the difference? A Gnostic says that they know that there is absolutely a higher power. They say that they have evidence, or they have proof, or that there is absolutely such a thing as a God, and I have that secret knowledge. That's a Gnostic, right? That's what most people think of when they think of Christians. They think God is real. Jesus is my personal Lord and Savior. I have a relationship with him. I've accepted him as my personal Savior. That's a Gnostic Christian who believes that there is, the mystery, the magic, the reveal, the metaphysical idea is true. The agnostic says, I don't know if it's true. I can't prove that it's true. I have no special secret knowledge that it's true. And then from there, the agnostic can either say, or I choose to believe, or I choose to disbelieve. So it's very likely that Jordan Peterson is in an agnostic Christian phase of his life, where they say, oh, well, you identify as a Christian. He says, well, I haven't labeled myself as such. Why have you labeled as such? And if the atheist got an email saying that it was going to be 20 atheists versus a Christian, you could understand why he would be confused. And I understand, acting, not necessarily, outraged about it, but I mean, I could understand a little bit of indignation if you prepare for it. But in that sense, if that's the case, the problem, of course, is if Jordan Peterson had tried to explain to Jubilee or whoever this is putting on these kinds of debates, if Jordan Peterson had tried to explain, he's like, well, yes, I am a Christian, but I'm an agnostic Christian, so it's not a Gnostic Christian, it's not a Gnostic position. He's like, I'm more thinking that these days I'm more accepting of the Catholic. I take the Catholic communion and do Catholic rites, and I consider myself to be Catholic and a Christian, but not like a Christian like maybe these people would consider to be a Christian. Right, and maybe he's also being a debater. He's like, I saw someone in the chat saying earlier, George, it's quite possible that Jordan Peterson is more attuned to trying to get someone to have a conversation rather than debate them, which if you're set up for a debate format, as we can obviously see, doesn't work too well. We're going to talk to Camellia Peterson about that. Thank you to Andy Opperman. Speaking of Dragon, I didn't get bonus content for today. Sorry for that. I would love to incentivize everybody to donate today, but hopefully they'll do so out of the goodness of their own hearts. Thank you for that. Bruce Burtwickle says, one must define what a Christian is. Basic definition is a follower of Christ. Well, if that's true, then Jordan Peterson would meet that definition because he claims to be a follower of Christ, but he doesn't necessarily accept the label of Christian from an atheist, which honestly, I would think a lot of Christians would probably identify with to a certain extent. Like if an atheist says you're a Christian, I mean, you could say, yes, absolutely, I am. But if you're in a debate situation like what Jordan Peterson is in, it's quite possible you could say, well, I'm not sure if I want to, accept your definitions of anything. So So it's an interesting question. JJ says, are there any locked away old bonus content you could resurrect? Yes, there is locked away bonus content. The bonus content from Friday is locked away. So if you would like to see it, if we do hit the bonus content thing, I will play that instead of commercials. And we will have commercials coming up. So if you want to unlock the bonus content, maybe go to forlibertyshop.com, buy a box of coffee, guys, or a Gulf of America beach towel. I saw Joni Rankin had posted her Gulf of America beach towel up on her wall, made it look like she was living in the Florida Keys, like a bungalow. It's pretty awesome. Thank you to Steelbringer. He gifted 1 sub. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. I wonder if we can get 5 gifted subs by the time we get to Camellia. She's going to be here joining us in about 6 minutes. Breathe for Liberty says, I get paid in Rumble Rants. Just remember that, guys. I've made $20 for the day, and my mortgage is due. Very true, guys. If you don't want to do it for AP, do it for BB. Gus Fanning says, I'm a few minutes behind thanks to the subway to the Long Island Railroad. I made a similar sauce to the Amarillo sauce using mayo plus Dijon. Worked well on this Saturday's tacos. I made ground beef, chicken, and fish. Woo, that sounds delicious. What about you guys? I've got Chadwick. We've got a real true Chad this morning who'll be joining us. Chadwick at 8:30 a.m. after Camellia. One listener texted in, answered my question about who are the most popular presidents. The largest electoral victory in U.S. presidential history, measured by the percentage of electoral votes won an elected contested election. Oh no, was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's 1936 victory. Ooh. Roosevelt secured 523 of 531 electoral votes, 98.49% against Republican Alf Landon, who won just 8 votes. Oh my God. Carrying only Maine and Vermont. Roosevelt also, what happened to Maine and Vermont? I'll tell you. Roosevelt also won 60.8% of the popular vote, second highest share since 1824. Behind Lyndon Johnson's 61.05 in 1964. Boy, the 60s were rough. This landslide was driven by Roosevelt's New Deal policies and widespread support during the Great Depression, consolidating the Democratic coalition. Ronald Reagan's 1984 election is another notable landslide with 525 of 538 electoral votes. Wow. 97.58% against Walter Mondale's 13. So Reagan was pretty close, though Roosevelt's percentage remains the highest due to the smaller number of electors in 1936. Ah, there you go. That's it. Interesting. All right, we're going to a commercial break, guys. Thanks so much for all your support. It's nice to see the people buying subs and dropping Rumble Rants. We appreciate that. That financial support keeps the lights on over here, keeps Brad Beckman able to pay his mortgage as well. We got a whole little community we're growing over here on the For Liberty Network. So go shopping at forlibertyshop.com. We'll be right back with Camellia with a longer discussion about this Jordan Peterson thing. When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a red coat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors. And trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.
tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable.
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
how do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either
it,
you're a
'cause
Christian
I won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression
private.
I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing. Right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Quite frankly, I think I totally identify with Jordan Peterson not wanting to give an inch or give a single thing to the person who's speaking so rudely and so disrespectfully. Joining us now to discuss that, CJ, the Camellia Peterson, joining us live. Just digging out from the Memorial Day holiday. Hope that you had a good one, Camellia. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I did. It was a rainy weekend, but that was good. And, it was time to do a lot of stuff in the house and go spend some time in bookstores and coffee shops. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you had a good one. We had a lot of fun at home where I roasted a Peruvian chicken. I used some delicious Peruvian peppers, and I made some chicken, and then I fried up some yuca, which was absolutely delicious. So
That sounds good.
So Cecilia over in the chat, she says Jordan's wife is Catholic, I believe. He could be going to a Catholic church just to support her. JP seems like he's trying to figure out his faith and is on a journey. What was your reaction to this, Camellia?
I 100% would have responded exactly the way Jordan Peterson responded and said, I'm not talking to this kid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else watched the whole thing, but I watched the whole thing yesterday. And so there was such a marked difference between that little punk and most of the other people who, got to the chair to talk with Peterson. And there were a couple of, and these are the only clips that you'll see going around on Twitter and wherever else, is of this guy and like one or two maybe other young kids. And those couple of people are the most unserious people in the entire group. They're not there for any kind of serious intellectual argument. They're there only for the gotcha factor and to try to do exactly what they accomplished in, making waves on the internet and getting themselves, their 15 minutes. So yeah, no, they weren't. I mean, the thing is like So this show, one Christian versus 25 atheists, whatever it was. Okay, I don't know that Jordan Peterson has ever claimed to be a Christian. And for people who were somehow surprised that he wouldn't, just 100% identify as that, like, are you not familiar with him at all? I'm only like, I don't listen to a lot of his stuff. I never have, but I've listened to enough to know that. So and of course, I think, people mistakenly assume because he's covered a lot of biblical content and he pulls from that and he's written a lot of things about that, but that does not, it's funny in the entire show, they talk about how you define, a Christian. And so, I would quibble with Jordan Peterson on some of the things he talked about. I think there were some really good discussions that were had that were worthy of pushing back against some of his premises. But he's never claimed to be what they were trying to make him to be. So I don't know that it's his fault that he was on this show. I think he took it as an opportunity coming at it from an intellectual perspective, not from what I would consider a deeply held faith religious perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that there's just so much ignorance about what sort of beliefs are even possible because people are so caught up in binary thought patterns. You're either an atheist or you're a Christian. That some people forget that, well, there's more than even Christianity. Don't forget, there are Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Shintoists. Right. Like there's a lot of religions. And the very idea that someone like Jordan might be an agnostic but consider himself to be a Christian is alien to it's you. I have almost never in my life ever been approached by or had a conversation with someone that was a sincere back and forth open discussion about the concepts of Gnosticism versus agnosticism, and it just never happens because most people, they don't even know these possibilities exist. So people are confused by Jordan Peterson and what he claims. It sounds as if he's kind of on a journey. He's trying to figure out what he believes. But like I know lots of people who would consider themselves to be culturally Christians. They wouldn't blanch at being called a Christian, but they don't believe in miracles or divine, they don't believe in revealed truth in the sense of, the divine right. They just don't believe in the metaphysical world, but they identify with Christianity culturally. These people exist, right. Do they not?
Sure. I mean, I think when they talk about how that our society is becoming more secular, that's definitely true. I think there are many different reasons for that, but the numbers are probably for people who are actually Christians, the numbers are way smaller, when they do that polling than what they're showing, because they're just asking people, what do you identify as? And and there are a lot of people just by virtue of the way they were raised, like it doesn't matter if they are practicing that faith. That's just what they know. That's how they were raised. That's what they identify as. And also, I think, to a lesser extent now than maybe, even 15 years ago, there was somewhat of a social stigma to identifying as anything other than Christian. So I think that is less so, which I think, is why people are more openly secular, because there are a lot of people who would have never said that they weren't Christian because it was not socially acceptable to say that, even if they didn't live it. And I think that's a big part of the difference here is that, when this guy is like pressing Jordan Peterson on Catholicism, like, why is that the thing you're going to make something a mountain out of? Because Catholicism certainly isn't the only brand of Christianity. There's a lot of conflict within the label Christianity over who has the truth or not, right? And then he just literally, like, if you watch the whole segment, well, I can't remember if it was that guy. There's one other kid that there's clips about has darker curly hair and who is talking to him in the same exact manner. I mean, like the totally approach is exactly the same. It's just a big gotcha moment. And I can't remember which one of them was, trying to say, okay, do they worship Mary? What's your definition of worship? And trying to pin him down on silly stuff like that, and not leaving. And they didn't want to leave any room at all for nuance, right? I mean, in a 20-minute space of time, they're trying to, distill a point down and then make something of it that's not there. So for people who are disappointed in Jordan Peterson, or they think that these kids, oh, they got him, like, you need to go watch the whole thing. And if you really think that, then I would actually also question your ability to objectively reason and look at this and come to any other conclusion, because it just, for context, there was one young lady who was the most interesting person who talked to him, named Zena. And they had an actual productive conversation. She was so smart, and she made some really good points in pushing back, and he respected that, right? He didn't try to, just like deny. Like, he respected her arguments. And so at the very end of the show, what he was able to do in the last 10 minutes is he selected somebody, and from the people that he had talked to bring back up, to let them give their premise for him to respond to. And so he chose her. It was actually very good. I actually would recommend that people go watch it just for those sections. But the other stuff, and there were other people who had productive conversations with him as well. But the two that are highlighted, yeah, punks.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's what's going to go viral, and that's all. It's like reading headlines. That's all most people are going to look at. They're not going to watch the entire thing. They're just going to watch the clip and make a snap judgment on it. Thank you, Camelia, for investigating further and sharing the light of your wisdom with our audience. You do this every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. Central Time. So if you guys are all enjoying Camelia, and if you don't know that she is a regular guest Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 a.m. Central Time. So we can't have an honest conversation about religion in this country, unfortunately, on a major level. So let's have it here on our podcast.
Oh boy.
I'm reading this article. It's from the American Enterprise Institute. It came out of the Deseret News, which I think is like a Christian newspaper from like the American Southwest. And the perspective is why even secular people should worry about Generation Z's lack of faith. And here's what Samuel Abrams writes. He says, as Gen Z is aging into adulthood, a plethora of stories have asserted that Gen Z is the least religious generation. Some writers suggest this could be a net positive for the nation and result in more diversity within friendship networks and increased tolerance levels. Pew Research repeatedly found that Gen Z is the nation's least religious generation, with about a third having no religion, about the same proportion as among millennials. So I guess my question is Camelia, how do you feel about it? Do you think, if, America is getting more secular, do you think that, the negative social consequences, positive social consequences, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I think that's a complicated question.
Yeah.
And I think that it remains to be seen, because there is a lot to say for being raised in a Christian home with the Christian tenets, and like the tenets of the Christian faith are, some of the, they're not solely Christian. There are other religions, whether it's Buddhism or, there are other faiths who also embrace a lot of those same basic core principles about how you live your life with virtue and integrity. But, so I do think that the question remains, like, that generation that's coming out of this, and I would consider them to be more honest, to be more intellectually honest than maybe, the people who came before them. Because like I said, I think it's more socially acceptable for people to say, I don't really know. And it's okay for me to say that. And I don't have to claim the label of Christian. And if I'm not really walking that out in my life, I respect that a lot more than the people who go around hollering that they're Christian with crosses in their bios and, everything like that, but they're acting like absolutely horrible people. I respect somebody who says, I don't know, and I'm not going to claim that label, than I do those people. And so, I guess the question is those people who are being honest in their search for kind of where they ground their lives as far as their moral base, what they draw from. when they are having children, like how do they, raise and teach their children? Like,
People
I think
struggle with that. People
Sure.
struggle with
like,
that.
and I think that is this question. I think that it's a valid question that has to be wrestled with. Is like, okay, but where do you get your foundation of your beliefs about what is good and virtuous in the world, right? Where like that's kind of like a chicken or egg question that people, go round and round about all the time. And there were some people on that show that just gave really poor answers. Like Jordan Peterson asked them about that, and they were like, well, because and it was just this circular argument of this is how I know something is right because it, and then nothing ever made sense. So I do think that is something that we do have to wrestle with individually and
20
as a
atheists,
society.
and they couldn't find one Ayn Randian objectivist who would sit there and say, let me explain to you why logic and reason is the basis underpinning of any moral system. No, it is funny, though, because you're right. They don't know where they get their morals from. They don't know where they get their virtue from. I think even libertarians make the mistake sometimes of saying things like, we don't want to legislate morality when, thou shalt not kill is more than just a 10 commandment.
Right.
It's a
Yes.
statement of morality, and to enforce laws against murder is to enforce a form of morality. What we don't want to do is have, the most narrow, or maybe the most obtuse, perhaps, way of sense of morality to be the ones who rule all of us. Like, because the left is constantly switching. Like you say, they have no underpinning in virtue or morality, or and they don't even have any ethics, right? Because it changes from day to day, and so therefore, there's chaos. You can understand why a lot of conservatives and right wingers, they trend towards more authoritarians, more of the top right on the political compass, because they feel as if they're acting as a counterbalance to the chaos and anarchy of the Black Lives Matter protesters burning down the streets. George Floyd is a hero. Let's bury him in a golden casket. The bad type of anarchy, not the good type, Murray Rothbard type anarchy that we were fans of. But the pendulum swings from one side to another. And you and I are here with Jordan Peterson having a nuanced conversation in the middle, and nobody's listening. And nobody's watching the full clips.
There's a story as old as time, though. That Greek philosophers are having the same conversations, right? Like, none of these people are thinking about all of these things, and they're thinking about all of these deep why questions of human behavior and what makes us human and what constitutes, goodness and virtue and integrity. And so these are things that are certainly not new to this era. I mean, and that's one of the things that Jordan Peterson brought up, was that these questions have been, wrestled with, and these concepts for thousands and thousands of years. And this one kid is like, well, we have philosophers that have done blah, 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 blah for the last 50 years. I was like, okay, man. There are certain things that should be tested by time, and that, I think, to a certain extent, not always, but to a certain extent, that's the way you test truth, is time, things that have lasting veracity. So, yeah, it is. We are in interesting times as far as where we go culturally as the United States, and I think that not only I don't think this is just an outcome of the American experiment, so to speak. I think that this is also, when you talk about a technologically advanced society and as science progresses, I do think that there are more people that find, answers to things that couldn't be explained 100 years ago even. And so the things that were maybe previously attributed to a higher power are now explained by science. I do think that one of the things that Jordan Peterson talked about is that they talked about religion in the context of science. And the thing is like there are some things that we will never know the answers to. It's not provable from a faith perspective or a science perspective. And I think that's where he is, where a lot of us are, is that it's okay to say, like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, I can wrestle with those questions, but I don't have the answer. And I think that is what so many people struggle with. They feel like they can't say that. They have to have the answer to everything.
Yeah, that is kind of the challenge, is that in our society, people they never want to be proven wrong. Some of us, don't all go out on, podcasts where you've got, 20 cameras on you and 20 atheists debating you. So they're not going to operate at that high level. But there is this sort of, chilling effect on free speech in some ways from having reasonable conversations, just because if you do something like this, you see people get dunked on, like Jordan Peterson. People take your words out of context. You can't even really post on social media what you believe, because, of course, any job recruiter or somebody that you go to work for is going to go peruse your social media, and you have a less chance of getting a job if you say things that are controversial online. So, our society, unfortunately, does not reward reasonable, reasoned, informed conversations. They're just not as entertaining from the perspective of watching, like, people are used to watching, football and sports and playing video games, fast-paced, high action, or they're scrolling through reels. They don't really have the attention span to watch these kinds of videos, to even begin to sort of like have cogent arguments. They'd have to actually consume the content or read the books, and they're not doing that.
There is also this idea that people who are kind of revered and respected as experts and purveyors of wisdom, like Jordan Peterson and others, people want them to be correct all the time. They figure,
Right.
If you're an expert in one way, why you're an expert across the board, and everything you say, should be the truth, right? I mean, like you have it all figured out. And I think that's a mistake. And I think it's part of what leads to this conflict, even within the right, as far as, and libertarians, is that, you hold someone up as the standard, whether it's Ron Paul or whether it's, Thomas Massey or whether it's Jordan Peterson. And, if they've got a lot right, well, they must have everything right and they can never be wrong. And I think that's a mistake. I think we should be willing to accept that people are fallible, but they can have a lot of wisdom to give, but maybe they're wrong about some things. Like there are things that I would disagree with Jordan Peterson on that he talked about, but that doesn't devalue everything that he says. That means he just has some stuff that I don't agree with, and I think that he gets wrong. But there are a lot of very interesting ideas and things that I think he has correct.
Yeah, completely agree. Camellia, that's why we love having you on as a regular guest. We actually get a reasonable, reasoned, and informed opinion about these subjects. As, you actually watched the whole video. Camellia, is there anything else you want to share with our audience before we say goodbye and see you on Thursday?
No, I would just, like I said, I saw comments that said something like, oh, I wasn't any better for having watched the whole thing. And, okay, there was probably a lot of like dumb stuff in there, but there were a few people in there that actually had very good conversations with him. And I think it's worthwhile to go in and listen to those kind of things and get a different, nuanced perspective on things.
There it is. Camellia Peterson with her nuanced perspective. Have a good one, CJ. We'll see you Thursday.
Have a great day, everyone.
Why do 95% of people never achieve true happiness? Aristotle might have the answer. What is Nicomachean ethics? This ancient philosophy holds the secrets to a fulfilling life. First, the pursuit of happiness. Aristotle believed the ultimate goal of life is eudaimonia, or flourishing. This means living in a way that brings out the best in you and others. Second, virtue as a habit. Virtue is achieved by practicing good habits and finding the balance between extremes. It's about consistently choosing the right actions. Last,
balance between extremes.
The golden mean. The golden mean is the desirable middle ground between excess and deficiency. It's about living in balance and harmony. Subscribe for more philosophical insights from the great
Here you go. Subscribe for more philosophical insights. Nicomachean ethics. Aristotle. That's what it's just. I feel so much more drawn to the the ancient wisdom these days. Hope that you guys are appreciating it. Don't forget to click the like button. We'll be right back with Chadwick Paul talking about running for local office and whether GOPs are ready for the upcoming midterms. It's the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Democrats just spent millions trying to reverse engineer a guy with a mic, a beard, and a can of liquid death. And somehow they're still losing. Because here's the thing. You can't fake Joe Rogan. You can't buy cool. And you definitely can't slap together a party-approved podcast factory and expect people to listen just because it's aligned. This isn't a Joe Rogan problem. This is a reality problem, a credibility problem, a we forgot how to talk to normal people problem. So what's the solution according to the party of consultants and coastal media execs? Easy. Just throw millions of dollars at it. Build a think tank. Fund a progressive content network. Hire some guy named Tristan to run your TikTok strategy. Problem solved. Except it's not. Because people can smell fake from a mile away. They know when the vibe is curated. They know when the words are pre-approved by a messaging team. They know when a relatable podcast host is actually just reading from a DC script with a friendlier tone and slightly more slang. That's what makes Rogan such a problem for them. He's not trying. He's not focused grouped. He's not polished. He just is, and people love him for it. He'll have on RFK Jr., Tulsi, Bernie, Elon, Jordan Peterson, whoever, and just talk. No interruptions. No MSNBC panel dissecting it in real time. No handlers. Just long-form conversations where people say real things and sometimes mess up. And that makes the consultants sweat through their Patagonia vests. Because for them, content isn't about conversation. It's about control. It's about protecting the narrative, defining the Overton window, making sure no one strays too far from the party line. But you can't compete with freedom of thought by throwing money at the problem. You can't manufacture real trust through a marketing campaign. What do they try instead? Hire digital strategists to pump out progressive talking points. Recruit creators to slip ideology into their skincare routines. Build out newsrooms and podcast studios and fund them with foundation money, all in the name of democratizing information. But really, it's about centralizing influence. They're not trying to empower creators. They're trying to clone them. Replace the messy, unpredictable voices with controlled, polished alternatives who never challenge power unless it's the approved kind. Meanwhile, guys like Rogan and creators like you and me and thousands of others across the liberty space, we don't need $10 million to speak freely. We don't need a memo to know what's true. We built audiences the old-fashioned way, by telling the truth, taking the hits, and showing up consistently. That's why they're failing. Because you can't mass-produce authenticity. You can't run liberty through a communications funnel. You can't build trust by reading a teleprompter with feelings. The irony? They had cultural dominance for decades. Hollywood, music, universities, mainstream news. They had it all. And now, a UFC commentator with a microphone is pulling more viewers than CNN in prime time. And it's driving them nuts. So what do? Blame misinformation, blame podcast algorithms, blame toxic masculinity, blame anyone and anything but their own inability to listen, to debate, to connect. Here's the truth. The real revolution didn't come from a movement, it came from a conversation. And people aren't giving that up just because the White House wants better influencers. So if you're tired of content that sounds like it was written by AI after being yelled at by a DEI coordinator, if you're tired of party-approved personalities reading from the script and calling it authenticity, then do something about it. Support the creators who aren't for sale. And you can do that right now by going to forlibertyshop.com. We're not backed by a foundation. We're not built by a comms team. We don't need a permission slip to say what we believe. What we are is proudly independent, loud, free, and just rebellious enough to put it on a t-shirt. So if you want to support liberty style and actual unscripted thinking, not the Spotify-friendly version of it, then grab your gear at forlibertyshop.com. From government mocking t-shirts to Gulf of America towels, we have the best merch for freedom-loving patriots. That's forlibertyshop.com. Because freedom doesn't come from a grant proposal, and influence, that has to be earned. See you next time. When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a red coat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors. And trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money and don't support your values. Stocks are limited, demand is booming, and your morning deserves a taste of liberty. Order now at forlibertyshop.com before the next shipment gets signed, sealed, and sold out. Founding Flavors Coffee, the official brew of morning rebellions everywhere. Get yours at forlibertyshop.com.
The bigger a bill, the more it includes, the more difficult it is to get everybody to agree to things. I supported the tax cuts in 2017. I support making them permanent, so I support that part of the bill. I support spending cuts. I think the cuts currently in the bill are wimpy and anemic, but I still would support the bill, even with wimpy and anemic cuts, if they weren't going to explode the debt. The problem is the math doesn't add up. They're going to explode the debt by, the House says $4 trillion. The Senate's actually been talking about exploding the debt $5 trillion. This year in September, when our fiscal year ends, the deficit will be about $2.2 trillion. Now, people used to always say, the Republicans would say, well, that's Bidenomics, that's Biden spending levels. When March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative. So I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. The idea that we're going to explode deficits, and the projections are now looking at over $3 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years, I think is just, not a serious proposal.
Last libertarian standing. Good morning, rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Speaking of For Liberty, my next guest, I believe it's his first time on the show. His name is Chadwick Dolgos. He's with Citizens Alliance and Mobilize the Message LLC. He ran for Inspector of Elections. What is Inspector of Elections? Just run for Congress, kid. Says he knocked on doors for 2 days, the list of 43 registered Republicans. Let's see if he spoke to any Republicans who agreed with Senator Rand Paul. Joining us live now to discuss is Chadwick. His first time on the show. Everybody say hello. Good morning, Chadwick.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much for joining us. Do Republicans still care about debt, Chadwick?
Definitely not in this area. But I would have to say people that I talk to, I work as a communications director in this field. A lot of grassroots candidates still care about the debt, and they're not a big fan of the big, beautiful bill. More Rand Paul, Thomas Massey type candidates. But I would have to say there are Republicans who do care about the debt. They're just too afraid to speak up against Trump.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of fear out there and a lot of loathing from some in some corners. I think that, Rand Paul's pretty brave to speak up and to stand up. I mean, he and Thomas Massey are very lucky in that they're pretty safe. There were announcements of, now we're going to primary them because they're not going to vote against the bill. I don't really see any kind of danger in that circumstance. So they do get a little bit more of a chance to speak up and speak out. But it is kind of dark days in the Republican Party where you have like this sort of open flouting of the basic laws of economics. And it's certainly not a libertarian moment. We hoped we were going to get one at some point. But, I mean, God bless Thomas Massey and God bless Rand Paul, because they're kind of like the last libertarian standing in Congress, at least in the Republican Party.
Well, I'll tell you, Massey is the one that got me into liberty politics. In 2017, I was still a registered Democrat, but I was learning a lot more about spending. And the economy is what flipped me. Now, at that time, I refused to say I was a Trump supporter. I'm not a Republican. And I was a huge fan of Massey. I was wishing that he'd turn libertarian. And then after a while, I was trying to connect with libertarians and organize and try to get people elected. And I realized like there was no action. And I sorry if I'm insulting anyone of your fan base, but it was like we would get together and then everybody would just want to prove who's more libertarian than the other.
Right.
So that's why I kind of switched over to Republican, but I've never lost the views. Like we're spending way too much. We spent way too much under Trump in the first term. We're just extending the Biden budget, and I'm not a huge fan. Huge fan of Trump, just not a huge fan of this.
Absolutely. Now, you announced your campaign for Inspector of Elections on March the 3rd. Tell us a little bit about this experience. It's kind of a funny story.
Yeah, so Cliff Maloney and Justin Grice, they through Citizens Alliance launched the Joe 1000 program. The goal is to get 1,000 judges of elections elected across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. When I went to go file for judge of elections, I was told there was already somebody who does it all the time. Like there's no way to defeat them. So I looked at an inspector of elections, and there's 2 seats for inspector of elections. There's a majority and a minority. I knew my only chance was to become the minority inspector, but it still puts me on the front lines of, defending, making sure that everything runs smoothly on election day. So I went out, I knocked for 2 days. After the first day, I didn't get anybody. I didn't see anybody. It didn't even seem like anybody was home. So I sent text messages and emails based off of the list Citizens Alliance gave me, and nobody responded. I was just letting them know, like, hey, I'm coming to your door. If there's a good time to come, let me know. I'll come. I only needed 5 signatures. So I sent that, didn't get anything. Went out, knocked, still nobody home. Hit some of the same houses I hit the first day because it was only a list of 43. And then after that, the petition was due, and I had 1 signature, and it was me. So then when the election day came, the night before, I sent text messages out to the list, just write in Chadwick Bolgus. I only needed 5 votes to advance to the November ballot. And there were 3 Republicans total that voted in the election.
3 Republicans voted.
3 total, and they all voted by mail.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there was no, because I needed 5 to advance. I won. I won, but I needed 5 to advance to the November ballot. But there is still a path for victory for me. So the Democrats have 1 inspector of election on the ballot. That person won. There was no write-ins or anything for them. And then I was the only one running on the Republican ticket. And all I will need in November is more votes than any other write-in. So the Democrats could technically write somebody in, an independent or something, and that way I could lose. But I can't imagine the Republicans are organizing outside of talking with me.
Right. So what's the lesson here, Chadwick? What are we to conclude from all of this?
Never give up. You know what I mean? It was like I ran a serious campaign. I knocked the doors. I did the work. It didn't pay out, but that doesn't mean that you stop fighting. It just means keep fighting and fight harder.
Campaign for inspector, and this is the Joe 1000.
Correct.
With Citizens Alliance. For people who want to get more information about that, they have a website. It is, you can either visit phase.com or go to teamcap.org/Joe. That's teamcap.org/Joe. One last series of questions that I had for you, Chadwick, is this question about the Democrats spending millions of dollars to learn how to speak to, quote, American men and win back the working class. So these are Democrat Party leaders. They got together in a luxury hotel, and they've got a strategy. They codename it SAM, or Speaking with American Men. It's a strategic plan to try and convince working class to vote their way again. Now listen to this. They promise to use the money that they've raised from Democrats to Speak with American men and use the funds to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. What's your reaction to that, Chadwick?
I mean, my reaction is the Democrat Party has to do something. Is this it? Maybe not. But when I left the Democrat Party, it was more so because they were leaving me. The focus was all on, the culture war and pushing all these things that had nothing to do with men. Like they bailed. So I think it's silly that they're spending all this money when really it just take a hard look at the party, see what lost the election for you in November, and then, move away from those topics. But, I don't think you're going to attract American men in, by 2026 or 2028 with millions of dollars. I just don't think it's possible.
If the Democrats wanted to attract men, let's say that we offered you $10 million to get the Democrats to attract men, what should the Democrats do if they wanted to actually get men to vote for them again?
Well, like I said, you have to get away from the social issues and be more rational when it comes to the social issues, because the irrationality is what pushes a lot of people away. And focus on the economy. It's not like the hottest topic for everyone, but like instead of like spending, justify the spending. Like the Democrats are always going to be the big spending party, and we understand that. And there's people that believe in that kind of spending. So focus on the economy, get away from the social issues, like talk about how you can make America great. Stop being offended by "Make America Great." Start talking about how you can make America great. That's the message that moves all of us.
What do you think would stand in the way of the Democrats changing their message to be more amenable to men?
Every other group outside of men would be standing in their way, because they've become the party of transgenders. I want to say women, but women are starting to come over to the Republican Party. So they still predominantly vote Democrat, but I think that those are the obstacles for them, because if you start messaging towards, men who just, want to work and, go about their lives, then you're really going to anger the people that you were cheerleading for the past 10 years.
Chadwick, we've run out of time here for this interview, but I want to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners anything that you'd like to share before we let you go, or any plugs that you would like to make before we go as well.
Yeah, sure. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to thewashingtonwick.com. I also encourage anybody who's watching from Pennsylvania to go to teamcap.org/Joe. And there's still time to run a write-in election, and Citizens Alliance will do the groundwork for you. So I just encourage anybody that wants to get involved.
There we go. Teamcap.org/Joe. Thank you, Chadwick.
Thank you.
Appreciate you putting your name out on the line. It takes some guts to get out there and run for office. We appreciate it. Have a good one.
Dude, thank you.
Well, a video of Emmanuel Macron and his wife is going viral over this weekend, where in Vietnam, at an event in Vietnam, you can see just off of camera Emmanuel Macron's wife, I won't say slapping him on the face, more grabbing him by the side of the head and shoving him out. With at first what they denied was a violent assault, but now admitting that it was just part of a little lover squabble. When video surfaced of Brigitte Macron appearing to forcefully shove the face of her husband as he arrived in Vietnam, the shocking moment was just the latest in a relationship that's been fraught with scandal since it began. The head of state, Macron, was just 15 years old, which is the age of consent in France. Don't all book your flights at once, weirdos. In 1993, when he met Madame Brigitte Auzière, a 39-year-old high school teacher, 39, at the Catholic Lycée La Providence in Amiens, where he was also a classmate of her eldest daughter, Laurence. So he was a classmate of her oldest daughter, and he was hot for teacher. She was 39. He was only 15. At 15, Macron had the maturity of a 25-year-old. His ex-sports teacher, Daniel Leloup, previously said he preferred to spend his time talking with the teachers rather than his classmate. Yes, talking with the teachers, yes. Brigitte's family found out about the affair in the summer of 1994 after they caught the two of them sunbathing around the pool at the home of the teacher's aging parents. The relationship between the straight-A student and his literature and drama teacher caused an uproar, always with the literature and drama teachers. Locals sent anonymous letters to the headquarters of the storied chocolate and macaron factory run by Brigitte's family, denouncing the affair. Neighbors, friends, and foes also spit on the doors of the future First Lady of France, according to Braun. From one day to the next, her friends with whom she was planning a vacation refused to speak to her. Emmanuel later mentioned the early romance when he said, "We spoke about everything, and I discovered..." Let me do it with my French accent. "We spoke about everything, and I discovered that we had always known one another." I need a French accordion music song playing right now. Now, at the time, Brigitte was married to banker André Louis Alzier, with whom she shared 3 children. Alzier took the news of his wife's infatuation with the teenager like a slap in the face, which is ironic. Frigid Bridget. The subsequent divorce between Brigitte Macron, now Macron, formerly Alzier, dragged out for over a decade. During that time, Emmanuel Macron, now the president, eventually left Amiens to spend his last year at a prestigious Paris high school. But his distance apparently didn't dampen the passion that he and Brigitte had for each other. "My head was in a mess. My head was in a mess," Brigitte revealed in a rare interview. "I told myself he would fall in love with someone his own age, but it didn't happen. Emmanuel went on to study politics and international affairs. The two continued to see each other every Friday after our Spanish lesson. He would run to the train station and jump on the train, says Gaspard Ganser, who attended university with Macron. Aren't you guys lucky that I can do these accents? Oh, the couple eventually married in the autumn of 2007, the year Brigitte's divorce was finally finalized. He was 29, she was 54. Wedding took place at the City Hall in the beachfront town of Le Touquet, the same place where Brigitte had married her first husband in 1974. God, what is wrong with you people? Disgusting. "Each and every one of you is a witness to these last 13 years, said Macron in a toast to his bride. "And you have accepted us. You have made us what we are today. I want to say thank you for loving us the way we are. And I want to thank Brigitte's children, because this has not been easy for them." Brigitte eventually quit her job as a teacher to work as her husband's main consultant when he became finance minister to the government of François Hollande in 2014. She remained by his side as he ran for president and she was getting all kinds of attacks in the French media, including allegations that Emmanuel was using her as a front to cover up a homosexual relationship with the head of Radio France. Oh, God. And then in 2017, at age 39, the age of the woman that he would meet in that school when he was 15, Emmanuel was elected the president of France, becoming the country's youngest leader ever. That same year, in an interview with Elle France, Brigitte addressed the couple's age difference, saying, "There are times in your life when you need to make vital..." Wait, hold on. "There are times in your life when you need to make vital choices. Of course, we have breakfast together, me and my wrinkles, him with his youth, but it's like that." Yeah, okay. In December, Macron's government collapsed and France was plunged into chaos following a vote of no confidence. Earlier this month, the Élysée Palace was forced to deny false claims that he took cocaine onto a train destined for Kyiv with a meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. Honestly, what do they do? Trying to make him sound cool. On Monday, the same day as the altercation between the couple, France's Court of Auditors issued a warning that France's social security spending was out of control and that a long-fearing liquidity crisis in the near future was growing closer. Meanwhile, in a statement, Emmanuel tried to downplay the incident with Brigitte, saying he was squabbling and rather joking with his wife, adding, "Everyone needs to calm down." So there's your backstory on all of the things French degeneracy.
President Trump has suggested that the debt is not really top of mind of his concerns. He wants Republicans to fall in line. He wants Republicans to pass the bill. You told CNN, quote, "Somebody's got to be the dad that says, I know y'all want to go to Disney World, but we can't afford it. I guess I'm going to be that guy," unquote. So how determined are you to be that guy if it actually means telling President Trump you are going to vote against the bill and you're going to try to get other Republican senators to join you unless there are major changes?
Well, in 2010, I sprang out of the Tea Party movement, and as I did parades, I would shout, "This is a fight for freedom. We are mortgaging our children's future. It's wrong. It's immoral. It has to stop." I haven't changed. My campaign promise in 2010 and every campaign after that was to stop mortgaging our children's future. It's immoral. It's wrong. It has to stop. And so he may not be worried about that. I am extremely worried about that. That is my primary goal running for Congress. This is our moment. We've witnessed an unprecedented level of increased spending, 58% since 2019, other than World War II. This is our only chance to reset that to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending. And again, I think you can do it, and the spending that we would eliminate, people wouldn't even notice. But you have to do the work, which takes time.
There we go. That's what I want to hear. Senator Ron Johnson. Finally, some Republicans standing up for fiscal sanity. Thank you so much for supporting the Wake Up America show. Sorry I was a little late today. Tomorrow we will be on time. We appreciate all the support that you offer the Wake Up America show. Don't forget, as you exit through the Grift Shop, visit our beautiful Gulf of America and Summer of Freedom collections at forlibertyshop.com. You know you're going to spend time at the pool. You're going to spend time at the beach. Stephanie and I took baby Hazel to the pool for the very first time at the YMC this weekend. Took lots of pictures. They were very sweet, very cute. Baby Hazel floating around in the pool, and then she then, we took her out of her, she was in a floaty at first, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." And then she was kind of like, "Okay, now I'm feeling it." Then we took her out of the floaty, and we swam her around in the pool, and we were splashing her. Sometimes she would get dunked, and she would go under, and she's like, then she's like, "Okay, I got," she's like, "All right, yeah, I can get this." And we had a wonderful time. So if you guys, and then as soon as we got out, I dried myself off with my beautiful, for everybody to see, Gulf of America beach towel. You can get those at forlibertyshop.com. I was using the pirate flag, Gulf of America pirate flag beach towel. You can get a small one, 30 by 60 inches, or just get the big one, guys. Don't be crazy. Get the big one, 36 by 72 inches, big giant beach towel at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Matt Unruh, Barney Styles, Joey Matto, Quest Fanning, Kermode Bear, BB for Liberty, Mighty Megatron, and everybody else who's in the chat as well. You guys better be back here again tomorrow. That's in order. We'll see you right back here again on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Thanks, guys. Take care. Democrats just spent millions trying to reverse engineer a guy with a mic, a beard, and a can of liquid death. And somehow they're still losing. Because here's the thing. You can't fake Joe Rogan. You can't buy cool. And you definitely can't slap together a party-approved podcast factory and expect people to listen just because it's aligned. This isn't a Joe Rogan problem. This is a reality problem, a credibility problem, a we forgot how to talk to normal people problem. So what's the solution according to the party of consultants and coastal media execs? Easy. Just throw millions of dollars at it. Build a think tank. Fund a progressive content network. Hire some guy named Tristan to run your TikTok strategy. Problem solved. Except it's not. Because people can smell fake from a mile away. They know when the vibe is curated. They know when the words are pre-approved by a messaging team. They know when a relatable podcast host is actually just reading from a DC script with a friendlier tone and slightly more slang. That's what makes Rogan such a problem for them. He's not trying. He's not focused grouped. He's not polished. He just is, and people love him for it. He'll have on RFK Jr., Tulsi, Bernie, Elon, Jordan Peterson, whoever, and just talk. No interruptions. No MSNBC panel dissecting it in real time. No handlers. Just long-form conversations where people say real things and sometimes mess up. And that makes the consultants sweat through their Patagonia vests. Because for them, content isn't about conversation. It's about control. It's about protecting the narrative, defining the Overton window, making sure no one strays too far from the party line. But you can't compete with freedom of thought by throwing money at the problem. You can't manufacture real trust through a marketing campaign. What do they try instead? Hire digital strategists to pump out progressive talking points. Recruit creators to slip ideology into their skincare routines. Build out newsrooms and podcast studios and fund them with foundation money, all in the name of democratizing information. But really, it's about centralizing influence. They're not trying to empower creators. They're trying to clone them. Replace the messy, unpredictable voices with controlled, polished alternatives who never challenge power unless it's the approved kind. Meanwhile, guys like Rogan and creators like you and me and thousands of others across the liberty space, we don't need $10 million to speak freely. We don't need a memo to know what's true. We built audiences the old-fashioned way, by telling the truth, taking the hits, and showing up consistently. That's why they're failing. Because you can't mass-produce authenticity. You can't run liberty through a communications funnel. You can't build trust by reading a teleprompter with feelings. The irony? They had cultural dominance for decades. Hollywood, music, universities, mainstream news. They had it all. And now, a UFC commentator with a microphone is pulling more viewers than CNN in prime time. And it's driving them nuts. So what do? Blame misinformation, blame podcast algorithms, blame toxic masculinity, blame anyone and anything but their own inability to listen, to debate, to connect. Here's the truth. The real revolution didn't come from a movement, it came from a conversation. And people aren't giving that up just because the White House wants better influencers. So if you're tired of content that sounds like it was written by AI after being yelled at by a DEI coordinator, if you're tired of party-approved personalities reading from the script and calling it authenticity, then do something about it. Support the creators who aren't for sale. And you can do that right now by going to forlibertyshop.com. We're not backed by a foundation. We're not built by a comms team. We don't need a permission slip to say what we believe. What we are is proudly independent, loud, free, and just rebellious enough to put it on a t-shirt. So if you want to support liberty style and actual unscripted thinking, not the Spotify-friendly version of it, then grab your gear at forlibertyshop.com. From government mocking t-shirts to Gulf of America towels, we have the best merch for freedom-loving patriots. That's forlibertyshop.com. Because freedom doesn't come from a grant proposal. And influence, that has to be earned. See you next time.